Being quoted as saying, modern plays are destructive to the human spirit. Now, isn't that a bit sweeping, Miss Mirren?
Yes, indeed. I'm very given to sweeping statements that I always regret when I'm confronted with them a couple of years later.
But would you not think it's true, still?
Yes, I think that I do. I mean, it's very, very hard to write a play. And we have the incredible advantage, being English, of having the greatest genius in playwriting, I think, accepted throughout the world, throughout history. I think that the Japanese and the Africans, and I think everyone would probably agree with that. And he happens to have written in English, which is one of the most extraordinary gifts, especially for an actress. And so when, you know, one reads modern plays, unfortunately there's always this great, extraordinary genius to compare them with.
But you might not always want to go to see Shakespeare. What is it about the plays that you disliked so much to say such a thing as that it's so destructive to human spirit?
So many of plays that I read or, you know, get sent or see, what upsets me about them is that they're so parochial, if that's the right word. I'm not very good with words. I mean, they seem to be so limited to a particular group of people, a particular time. They never seem to spread their wings out into something that would be comprehensible to a Japanese person in 50 years' time, as much as it is. Mind you, conversely, of course, arguing against myself, apparently Coronation Street, which must be one of the most sort of is parochial the right word?
Yeah,
you
I think it's what you mean, provincial or parochial.
Well, local,
tiny,
to do
yes.
with a small, is extremely popular in Japan, so I might be completely wrong.
You have acted in modern plays yourself, haven't you? When you were the pop queen, or not the...
Oh yes, that's right, Teeth and Smiles, yes.
Teeth and Smiles.
Yes.
Now, what was it about that play that you actually liked then?
Oh, well, it was a terrific part. And when it comes down to really good parts, you know, one's principles go flying out of the window. No, but it was... also, I don't know, playing a rock and roll singer, and you know, a lot of actors secretly in their hearts would like to be rock and roll singers, as a lot of rock and roll singers would secretly in their hearts like to be actors.
So you're saying that secretly in your heart you'd like to be a singer?
No, it was fulfilling a fantasy. It certainly was.
Do you have a lot of fantasies?
Yes.
Are you going to tell me any of them?
Oh. Well, they're just of so many different ilks, I suppose. I have a fantasy about the world being a happier place, which is a fairly impossible idea.
Do you think it's an unhappy place, Helen?
No, I think it's a place where the two are in constant balance, aren't they? At least that's what I try and persuade myself. It gets difficult from time to time.
You had a fantasy about fairgrounds.
Yes, well, I grew up in Southend-on-Sea. Well, Leigh-on-Sea. I was always told to say it was Leigh-on-Sea, but it's next door to Southend-on-Sea. And we had the Curzal, which sadly has been pulled down. It was a great place where the EastEnders, London EastEnders, would go and spend their holidays and, you know, weekend trips and things like that. And I've always found a fairground a very romantic place. I mean, in all the midst of the vomit and the rubbish and all the rest of it that actually go along with fairgrounds, I still find them extraordinarily attractive places.
Escape? Is it an escape place, do you think?
Oh no, I think it's probably the rogues and vagabonds side of it, that you know, actors were considered in legally up until comparatively recently, about 200 years ago, in the same category as rogues and vagabonds. Rogues and vagabonds and actors were thought to be the same sort of, you know, ilk. And I think actors have this sort of attraction to people who move around a lot, perhaps have are not rooted and are in the business of entertainment.
Are you a vagabond? Do you think you're a vagabond?
I'd like to be, I suppose. I find it very easy to leave, always.
To leave the last thing you've done?
Yes, and to leave home and to go off abroad, to go somewhere.
Mm.
I love going.
When you went, in fact, on that funny sort of journey, I remember reading the John Hyphen book.
Funny sort of journey.
I've just suddenly remembered it, and I've forgotten what it was. It's through Africa, did you not go?
That's right, yes.
Yes. Now, what was that about?
I suppose that was real rogues and vagabonds, and in fact I couldn't really cope with that very well at all. It was a trip in Land Rovers through Africa, through a part of Africa, doing plays, not plays, improvised sort of shows in villages and all over the place.
What was the intention?
The intention was to find out what it is that is what we were talking about earlier, what is universally exciting, interesting in a piece of theatre, universally, that is not, limited to a particular actor, accent or a particular culture or a particular understanding. What is absolutely fundamental and universal.
Why did you want to become an actress when you in fact trained to be a teacher, didn't you?
Yes, it was a great mistake for me to train as a teacher. I regret it terribly.
Why?
Because I was never cut out to be a teacher. I hated school. I loathed it. I loathed it worse as a teacher than I did as a schoolgirl. I mean, I couldn't believe the horror of what went on in a staff room. Especially this extraordinary thing, 1 minute being, outside the door, staff room door, knocking, not allowed, occasionally peering through the door and seeing them all in there drinking their tea. And then suddenly, 6 months later, being inside that door and being one of them. And I had, sort of proper, I suppose, sense of respect for my teachers, and sort of basically thought they were better people than the pupils were, because that was the story that they were giving out for 12 years. And I discovered with a most terrible shock 6 months later that not a bit of it. They were as pathetic and petty and banal and as we were.
And it really put you off teaching because of the staff?
I mean, I always hated schools anyway. I couldn't see, I still don't see why someone should have to stop talking if they want to talk.
You went to a very strict school, though, didn't you? A convent school?
It was a convent school, yes.
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly strict like some convent schools can be.
Do you think it was because it was a convent school that you object to school so much?
Oh no, I don't think so. I quite liked it being a convent, actually. I mean, the nuns were lovely, and some of them were lovely anyway.
But they were sort of. But you see, you seem to have had a very something strict about that convent upbringing, because I read that you'd said that you were too frightened to have babies.
Oh yes, that wasn't to do with the strictness of my school. It was to do with the unutterable stupidity of the council, or the local authority, who suddenly discovered, I suppose about 10 years after every other local authority, sex education. And suddenly discovered that the government had told them that they've got to have sex education, and discovered that in none of their schools were we given anything remotely associated to sex education.
How old were you now, Helen?
14,
Yeah.
15. You know, that awful time when you can't look at boys or other, just the whole thing is just hyper tense. And so then they thought, well, my God, I presume this is what happened anyway. They thought, we must teach them about sex. What can we do? What have we got? We've got this midwives educational film. Let's show them that. That'll show them how babies are born, this time I didn't know how babies were conceived or anything like that.
You had no clue at all about what happened, you mean? None at all now?
I can't remember if I knew, where they came from, where they came out of. I don't think I knew about how they got there.
No.
I think by then I couldn't have been that stupid not to have realised where they came out of. But it's because it is possible, I'm sure it actually still is, to grow up in a, by some accident, just never quite being told what happens. Yeah. Anyway, so all the boys and girls of 14 and 15 were all herded into this hall, and we were shown this midwives educational film on a baby being born. And we had this very sweet, I think probably spinster lady, gynecologist, who stood up and said, "This is about to be the most wonderful experience of your life. I've seen this, 2,000 times, and I've never failed to realise what a wonderful miracle it is." And then the lights went down and this film started. Like this, I'll never forget that noise. And there was just this picture of this baby being born. I mean, just, like that. And it was the most... I mean, within 5 seconds I had to stop the film because 2 boys had fainted and had to be carried out. I just put my hand in my head like this after about 10 seconds and just couldn't look anymore. Just stayed like this and just heard this sound of the going on. And about 5 minutes later the lights came up and there was this absolutely shocked, white, terrified children. Adolescents, not children, adolescents like this, who all went out, and the boys, I mean, it'd be interesting to meet someone who was there, and if they actually had as bad experience as I did. I'm sure they did.
But Helen, have you never tried to
put us off?
Well,
I never thought of that.
Well, I was just
like they do in the army, show you pictures of sort of VD and things, try and put you off sex.
But listen, why don't you think you now ought... Have you ever gone and looked at another film deliberately in order to get rid of that sort of scare?
No, I've never been able to look at it since. I mean, they have it on television from time to time. I have to switch over immediately.
Yes. You've got strong views too about marriage, haven't you? I mean, you don't. Do you fear it?
Do you?
You don't.
Views about marriage at all. I mean, I have very, very weak views about marriage.
What do you mean? That you don't actually approve of it, or that you can't be bothered?
I've never been attracted to it. It's a bit like junket, that stuff. I mean, I'm just not naturally attracted to the idea. Like, I've never really... I mean, I would eat junket if it was forced down me.
It's good for you.
It's good for me, yes, exactly. And I probably eat it and get to like it, probably, if I had to eat it every day. But I'm just not naturally attracted.
Is it some resistance because you perhaps think that women are restricted once they get married?
No, I have no theories about it whatsoever. A good marriage, I think there's nothing more moving and wonderful than to see a 70-year-old couple who've been happily married. I mean, it's a fascinating thing for everyone, isn't it? This old couple they recently had, who I heard rowing on the radio. It was marvellous. The couple who've just celebrated their 75th or something anniversary of being married.
Yes.
They've been married for 70-something years. And they are obviously, and they're always asked their recipe for, how have you managed to get by all this time? And so they were talking on the radio, and they were saying, well, it's understanding each other's attitude. It's like, I understand that she is always going to be late. And then she says, but I'm always going to be late because I know that, that you, I can't, it was to do with getting out of the house on time. It's a classic argument, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
That even people who aren't married have constantly. But this funny little row developed that I hear myself having with my Urim.
You're a boyfriend.
My Urim.
Your boyfriend. Listen, you said to me that you wanted to go off quite soon. And I'm sad to let you go because I've so enjoyed talking to you. But what is it you wanted to find out from the props man in the studio?
The props man, I hope, is going to tell me how to make cobwebs.
And tell me why you want to make cobwebs.
Urim is a photographer, and he's going to take a picture at the weekend. It's all covered in cobwebs. So he doesn't know how to do it, so I'm hoping that the props man is going to help me.
Are you going to be in that cobweb?
Oh, no, not me. No, Jim Capaldi is the great rock and roll singer.
Thank you very much for talking to me, because I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.